for a lot of different teams. I remember him playing for the Atlanta Hawks. I remember him playing for the San Antonio Spurs, and I remember Stephen playing for the Indianapolis Pacers, if I'm not mistaken. That's all I really remember. But I remember he was a pretty good athlete. I think he was about maybe 6'6", 6'7". Seemed to have a pretty good jump shot, a lot of athletic ability, and he definitely has an interesting life. He definitely has an interesting life. Um, Here's what the reason I'm talking about Steven Jackson today. I don't talk much about. I've never talked about Steve Jackson, but I was compelled to share my thoughts on something that somebody asked me to comment on today. And sometimes you guys send me stuff, and you want to know my take on it. And I said, this is really interesting because this is real life. And so Steve Jackson did a video recently explaining his side of the story, in terms of why he left. He apparently he was supposed to get married, and he left his fiance at the altar. He basically, got to the wedding day, and on the wedding day, he was like, "I'm out. I'm not doing this." And a lot of people, of course, were confused by that. I'm sure some people were upset about that. It is what it is, right? And you guys know I've talked a lot about. I've talked openly about my planned marriage to Alicia, and the reason I did so is because I think that as Black men we have to really reignite the celebration of Black women, the public, wide open celebration of the beauty of Black women in our community. Instead of putting them in second place, they need to be in first place, and that's just what I believe, and that's what I'm going to do. I don't care what anybody has to say about that. I want to share without being gaudy, so I don't want you to think that I'm bragging, but I really think that if you have anything to brag about, having a beautiful Black woman next to you, that's truly a source of pride. That's like that's better than the nicest Mercedes in the lot. That's like, that's better than driving a Bugatti, is having a beautiful Black woman next to you who honors you and respects you. And so when she gives you that respect, I think that giving that respect back is very important. Now, here's what's interesting. So let me just say a little about Stephen's story. I'm going to try to paraphrase here. His video's out there. You can feel free to go check it out. How you doing, Caroline? Good to see you, sister. Hit the thumbs up button, by the way. Please hit the thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe and all that. So to give you the long and short of it, the reason he left her at the aisle or at the altar had to do with the prenup. From what I gathered, and I listened to the whole video, it was very interesting to listen to. I like him. I like what he was saying. I thought that the brother was, now, I mean, he was smoking weed while he was talking. Y'all know me. I don't smoke and drink and nothing like that. But brothers, I think, when a brother's talking sense, like I give him that respect, and it doesn't matter if we're similar in terms of how we share our manhood. I just liked what he was saying. He gave a lot of really compelling arguments in terms of why it's better for young brothers to find one good woman as opposed to run around with a whole bunch of women. And I'm actually going to talk about that for a second, because here's the thing. When you get to the point where you have a little money, a little status, whatever it is that you think you have, you're going to attract a lot of attention from the opposite sex if you're a man. Everywhere you go, you're like the prettiest girl in the room. And I'm not an NBA star, but it's really ironic. I remember being seen as very attractive to women who don't like athletes. So the women who love really smart men, they would flirt with me in ways that kind of raised my eyebrow a little bit. And I thought it was great, though. I appreciate it. If you've ever flirted with me, don't think I'm offended by it. But it was just interesting, because I'm analytical. I observe everything. And so here's what happened. So basically, he was supposed to marry this lady, and he wanted her to sign a prenup, which is a very, very, very smart decision, particularly if you have assets you want to preserve. Those who want to ask me if I have a prenup with Alicia, the answer is absolutely yes. When I brought up the idea of the prenup, she was in complete agreement at that very moment. There was no debate. There was no like, oh, well, what do you mean? You don't think, you must not love me. You must think we're not going to get married. And that wasn't, that didn't come up. She's a grown woman. She understands, like, getting a prenup does not mean you expect to get a divorce. Getting a prenup means that you want to make sure that there's clarity. There's a concept in finance called optimal contracting. Optimal contracting prevents another problem called moral hazard. Moral hazard is a problem that occurs when you give power over to another party. For example, when a bank loans money they have a moral hazard problem, because once that money's out of their possession, they're going to have a hard time getting it back, right? Without having to go break somebody's legs or whatever. So to prevent the moral hazard problem where you're transferring over power to another person, you do what they call optimal contracting, which means that you sign some sort of agreement that says, just in case this don't work out, this is what's going to happen next, right? Just in case, you loan your cousin money, you're worried that you ever loan somebody money and then they're all nice and polite when they're trying to borrow the money, right? When they answer the phone on the first ring, anything you want that they'll give it to you. They're super polite, and then you loan them the money, and 2 weeks in, like, you can't even get them on the phone. You call them, they got an attitude because you asking for your money back, right? Like you like, what the hell? Like, you were so nice to me before you had my money. Now that you have my money, suddenly you ain't got time to talk to me no more. Suddenly, instead of answering on the first ring, you were busy that day for the entire week. Well, that's moral hazard. That's what moral hazard is. And moral hazard happens not just in finance, which is a very big theory in finance, actually. It also happens in life. It happens when you get married. It happens, ladies, if you've ever, gave it up to a guy a little bit too quick and saw his attitude change, where you're like, damn, I wish I could take my vagina back. Like, I wish I could go back and do a repo on that vagina that I gave you last week. I don't know if you ever felt that way, but that's a moral hazard issue, right? So the solution to the moral hazard problem is twofold. One is optimal contracting. Now, of course, you can't make vagina contracts, right? So that's hard to do. But marriage, you can have things like a prenup. You loan money to somebody, you sign a contract before you loan them money, just to make sure that there's clarity. Another solution is taking your time doing your research, right? Taking your time to make sure that before you give it up, whatever it is you're giving up, money, your body, your time, whatever, you're sure that this is a good investment for you. So this is all an investment decision. Giving your life to another person is the biggest investment decision you'll ever make. And most investments that you make in your life have nothing to do with money. So ultimately, Steve Jackson, I like what he was saying, because what he was really talking about, and he mentioned sort of casually, the importance of taking your time to check out that woman before you commit to her. He said, look, the same way you take your time before you pick a car, or you take your time before you buy a house or whatever, you should take your time before you pick your partner, right? And I said, that's okay. That's good. That's a solution to the moral hazard problem. Take your time, do your research. Don't jump into stuff too fast, right? And then 2, optimal contracting, which is getting the prenup. So Stephen basically says that, again, this is his side of the story. Maybe she has her side. I'm sure she does. Everybody does. There's always 2 sides. There's 3 sides, right? His side, her side, and the truth. So based on his side of the story, he says that he continuously asked her about getting a prenup. He continuously followed up, like, when we gonna sign that prenup? Hey, girl, did you get the prenup done? Hey, babe, where's the prenup, right? So they're planning the wedding the whole time, right? They're getting closer to the wedding date. She still, each time it's like, oh, well, I didn't get a chance to get around to it. Oh, my lawyer has to go look at it. Oh, I forgot to bring it, right? So so right there, those are red flags, right? And it's funny because when he said that, it kind of triggered me a little bit, because I remember having that issue with a contract. I remember we were trying to get somebody to sign a contract, and the person kept delaying and delaying and delaying. And then later on, we found out they were delaying because they were scheming, right? They were plotting something else, and that's why they were delaying. So always, be leery of anybody who just won't get to the point or takes a little bit too much time to do something that shouldn't take much time. So anyway, and here's the other thing too, it's a little secret. When you get money, there's always somebody that's going to be plotting to get their hands on what you got. Especially you talking about NBA players. These guys, I think Steven Jackson made about $70 million throughout the course of his career. That's a lot of money. That's not laborer money. That is corporate money. Like, there are corporations. Most corporations never make $70 million. So when you are making that kind of NBA, NFL type money, you are a walking corporation, and you also become a walking target. So ultimately, they got all the way up to the wedding, and he said that right before the wedding, there was a pastor that he had picked to do the ceremony, and he said that she didn't want that pastor. She wanted a different pastor. And he was like, well, why do we want that pastor? Because this is the pastor I've had since I was a child. And she's like, no, I really want that pastor. I want that pastor, right? And he didn't understand why, and because she didn't know the pastor. She had just been introduced to him by one of her friends. And so, so again, this is his side of the story. So he said that they got to the wedding day, and she still had not signed the prenup. She still, and he kept saying, if she don't sign a prenup, I'm not getting married. She don't sign a prenup, I'm not getting married. So people were going back and forth between the two of them, like, okay, she's going to sign it, she's going to sign it. And it got to the point where, the singer was about to sing, they're about to walk down the aisle, everything's about to go down, and he just walked away. He said, no, I'm not signing nothing. He said, no, I'm not marrying anybody today because that prenup did not get signed. And so here's what I'm going to say on that. I thought that was wise. I thought that was very, very wise. I thought that was very brave to be able to walk away from a situation that deep, because a lot of times we get into that situation and all these people have come to the wedding, all this money's been spent. I think he said he spent $400,000 or $500,000 on the wedding, and he was able to walk away from that. And basically, he saw that, again, to use a financial term, he saw that just as a sunk cost. He didn't say, well, I've already put $400,000 into the wedding, we might as well do it, right? He didn't say we might as well do it because I put this money in. He said, you know what? It's a wash. I'm going to let go of my $400,000, and I'm going to keep from losing even more. And so that's important, because a lot of people will go through something because they don't want the embarrassment of changing their plans at the last minute. There was, in fact, I had a friend that got married to a person that she knew wasn't the right person for her to marry. She knew he wasn't the right guy, but she went through it. And I said, why did you go through with it? And she said, well, because I would have been embarrassed to have canceled the wedding. I didn't want everybody to waste all their time and money coming to my wedding and then telling them that I wasn't going to do it. And the thing is, at the end of the day, it's your life. It's your life. Like, you're going to have to live with the decision that you made. All those people that are giving you advice, all those people that are in your ear, all those people that are telling you what to do, none of those people have to live your life. None of those people have to deal with the consequences of the choice that you're going to make. So you don't want to throw away 10 years of your life just because you were getting peer pressure. If you feel that something's wrong or something's not quite right, go ahead and make the move. I mean, people, they're going to talk about it for a minute, but they'll get over it. They'll talk about it for about a day or two. And maybe it'll come up once a year or something in the back of people's minds, but people really don't have that much stock invested in your life. We think a lot of times we'll really think that everybody's really paying close attention to everything we're doing, but people don't really give a shit. People don't care. There's a saying that says, we'd be surprised at what people say about us if we realize we'd be surprised by what people think about us if we realize how little they actually did think about us. Right? Because people are thinking about their own lives. They're not really thinking about yours. Right? So with that said, he basically didn't get married because the prenup wouldn't get signed. She kept delaying, according to him. And then he mentions an interesting little story about going out that night, and I think he said he slept with one of her friends. He said, this is supposed to be your friend, and she's sleeping with me. Like, she couldn't wait for us to break up. And I thought that was kind of interesting, and it almost seems like, maybe possibly, I'm not sure, but I've heard athletes talk about like this culture of women that, just want to nail an athlete, want to nail them down. It's a financial decision. It's something that can set you up for life. It might involve either having a child with a man that has money or marrying a man that has money. And if you don't think that that's like a real thing, I don't know what to tell you. Like, that is real. There are people that see their biggest investment decision they're going to make in their life is to have a baby with the right person or marry the right person. Because even if you get a divorce, you're still going to get paid. When you have money, you kind of have the opposite of the coronavirus. Like, it's not bad like the coronavirus. It's not like something that's bad for people, something that's good for people. Meaning that if somebody just tangles with you, if somebody becomes your friend and gets in your circle, or they're dating you, or they marry you, a manipulative person can always get something out of that, right? So for example, if they know that you're worth $100 million and you don't want to be embarrassed by some false accusation, people will just accuse you of something and have their lawyer sue you. Next thing you know, they're suing you and they're whining and crying about it, and then your lawyer says, look, I know you didn't do anything wrong, but you better just write her a check to make it go away. Right. So there are people that, know how to play that game. And one of the things that was really fascinating to me, and I love this part, this showed that, that this guy, this explains why he was a great player in the NBA, because he was strategic. He said that he talked to his fiance right when he told her, like, we're not doing this. You didn't sign the prenup. We're not getting married. He said she came to him and she's crying and bawling. And she's like, okay, I'll sign it. Right. And he was so smart to know. Does anybody know why it was intelligent for him to not accept her signature? It was intelligent for him not to accept her signature because he knew that in the court of law, that if you get a prenup or any contract signed under duress, that it's going to get thrown out of court. You know, she could go back again because people love to when they talk about the black male, they love to position and to portray the black male as some sort of terrible predator who forced you to do things, right? So especially in the Me Too movement, they love to put on the Becky face and it was so hard, it was hard. I was so afraid that if I didn't sign, he wasn't gonna marry me, and I just couldn't, right? So she would have went to court. At least I'm not sure. I don't know this lady, but there's a very good chance that if she went ahead and signed this contract that she clearly didn't want to sign because she hadn't signed it. You had 6 months to sign the damn thing. Yet, if she has signed this, there's especially in the heat of divorce. In divorce, your best friend has suddenly become your worst enemy. The person who knows all your secrets suddenly hates your guts, right? That's why divorce is such a weird thing for me. I think it's very unfortunate. It's a terrible thing to go through if you've ever gone through it. And I've never gone through it. I've never been, I took my time to get married, but I've seen my friends up close, and it's unimaginable how this person that you used to be closer to than anybody on the planet is suddenly your number one enemy on earth. You know, and they say there's a thin line between love and hate. I think divorce shows that very well because maybe they hate you so much because they kind of love you, but that love is kind of a hate thing. So it's a lot of emotional triggers are being pulled. And so people end up hurting each other pretty badly. And so he was very smart to know that, no, I'm not going to accept your signature because what you're going to do is you're going to victimize me by turning yourself into the victim. You're going to victimize me by making me into a predator. You're about to victimize me by flipping this shit on me so that when we go right now, you're going to be this independent woman who's making her own decision. But in divorce time, you're going to turn to this innocent, this little child, this feeble little child who isn't capable of making decisions because you're so emotionally fragile and you felt so intimidated by a big, scary black man who forced you to sign this. So he said, no, I don't want your signature. I'm not taking it. And so I love the way he really did he gives some excellent game in terms of the law and prenups and all that stuff. And in fact, for example, other little things about prenups that you may or may not know is that when Alicia and I got our prenup, they told us that we have to have separate lawyers. I can't have the same lawyer that she has when we sign the prenup because they want to make sure that I'm not forcing her to do it, or that that nobody's being manipulated or nobody's being tricked into signing a bad agreement, right? And so sort of keep these things in mind. I like also what he was saying, about, I love the fact that he talked about black women, and he got to the point where he flipped into giving advice to young black men about the importance of loving black women and the importance of building with one woman. And he spoke about it not just in a way that says that it's the right thing to do, but he also talked about it in a more practical sense, meaning, it's a lot of women. It's very expensive to have a lot of women. Let me give you some of the challenges of having lots of women. And because a lot of guys are like, yeah, I want to get money. I'm going to be the ball. I'm going to be the man. I'm going to be the pimp. I'm going to be having all these hoes. Like guys get into that mindset because that's what you're fed through media. That's what you're fed maybe through the music. That's what you're fed by people who don't know what the hell they're talking about. What they don't tell you is the dark side of having a lot of women coming in and out of your life. What happens is that when a lot of women come in and out of your life, you catch a lot of STDs, but not just the physical STDs. I'm not talking about herpes and syphilis and gonorrhea and AIDS. All that's a distinct possibility for sure. All that could possibly happen, but you're also talking about a lot of other social and psychological STDs that can happen as well. Economic STDs. You can catch a financial STD. And what do I mean by financial STD? Well, if you are a man who's 35 years old and you got 8 kids with 6 women, and and then you say, oh, well, I don't want to be a player no more, and you talking about you gonna settle down and find the right woman. Ain't no decent woman in her right mind gonna want to settle down with that bullshit when you got 6 women that are all up your ass about child support, 8 kids, half of whom hate your guts because you weren't around enough when they were growing up, right? All these problems, and you're financially drained. I mean, and I'll just say this to the ladies too. Like, I know we want to not judge, and they tell us in church not to judge and forgive and all that. I'm sorry, but if you get with a guy that has a bunch of kids with a bunch of women, he better be a multimillionaire. He better be a multimillionaire because that child support will kick you in your ass. Like, child support is not a joke. I paid 18 years of child support, 18 years, and one child for 18 years. That was enough for me to say, man, I am never doing this again. I am never doing this again. So imagine having 8 kids, 7, 8 kids. Some of these guys got a lot of, and I'm not judging people's decision to do what they want. You can do what you want in the bedroom, but I'm just saying that there's consequences to that stuff. That stuff piles up, it catches up with you, and and it's like a crazy thing when this little person is like 14 years old and they're forming their own thoughts and opinions about you, and you're like, God, like, do you even understand how close you are to not even being here? Do you know that you wouldn't even be here if I had decided to go to Dairy Queen that night instead of going to your mama's house? Like it's the craziest thing. So basically what I would just say is, ladies, if you meet a guy that's got all that chaos, and same thing's true with men. Like, if you meet a woman that's got a bunch of different baby daddies roaming in and out of the house, that's a situation you have to move into very delicately, because you're walking into you're not walking into an uninterrupted space. You're walking into an occupied territory. Almost like when white folks got to America and the Native Americans were already here, right? They're like, we discovered America. No, you didn't, right? They were already here. Well, you're not forming a life with this person. There are people that are already there. That man already has multiple wives. You're going into a polygamous relationship, whether you know it or not. Maybe you're going to be the head wife, kind of, possibly, but you might not be, because there may be another wife that is like, I've been here 8 years. I don't know who this hoe is, right? Seriously. So ultimately, what I would just say is that, we have to realize that your life is like a book, and every time you make a choice, you're writing a chapter of that book, right? You're writing another paragraph in that book, and some people got big, thick books that are very sloppy, that read like horror stories. And so when you go and you get, let's say, in your 30s or even your 40s, and you decide you want to settle down, you're handing that book to that person and saying, here's my book, read my book. And if it reads sloppy and messy, and the choices you've made up until that point are not conducive to a healthy and productive relationship, that person's smart to walk away from that. And also on the flip side of that, if you are that person reading somebody's book and they're bringing a bunch of chaos to the table, you have to at least balance it to the point where you don't think love will conquer all. You can't just assume that because I love you, that nothing matters. No, you have to be practical. Okay, wait. So all right. So you're telling me you got 6 kids with 4 daddies, $300,000 in student loan debt, bad credit, an STD. And you're broke as hell, and you don't make very much money because you never went to school. I'm not going to judge that. I don't think that you have to judge that one way or the other, but I think you should at least evaluate the situation that you're walking into, so that you're realistic about what the weight that you're going to have to carry in order to elevate that scenario, right? In order to help that person overcome all the issues. Because men have that whole, you remember E40 song, Captain Save-A-Ho, right? You got people, and women too. It ain't even just men. Like, you got women out here that are Captain Save-A-Ho too, that will literally take a guy who's made nothing less than 30 or 40 really horrible decisions, and will just be like, I'm going to stand by him because I want to be loyal to the black man. I appreciate that. On behalf of all black men, God bless you women who will go dig down in the dirt, in the trenches, with the most raggedy son of a bitch that shows up at your doorstep. But I will encourage you to realize that at some point you have to have what are called boundaries. You have to have some sort of limits, some sort of standard to say, I'm gonna have to love you from a distance. I just really don't know if I want to, I've worked so hard to keep this stuff nice and neat and clean. My life, I've made good decisions here. I don't really know if I want to taint all of that, right? Because my life is clean. I've kept it nice and disinfected, and your life got coronavirus. Like why? Well, because when you were 25, you didn't think about how your decisions were going to play out when you were 35. And that's okay. I'm not going to hate you for that. I'm not going to disrespect you, but that's not really what I'm looking to sign up for, because at the end of the day, your partner is supposed to be a person that elevates you on some level, right? Now, in the case of a Steven Jackson, he had money, right? I assume he kept some of it. I don't know how much he kept. I don't know what his investment and spending and saving decisions are. I have no idea. But you know, that's a lot of money to burn through. So I don't think he burned through it all. And so he probably didn't need money. But maybe he needed somebody who could be a good teammate and a good partner in the game of life, right? That's the real game that he's playing, the game of life. And I think that the challenge for a lot of NBA players, and I think this is just generally true for a lot of wealthy men, in, you know, period, is that you have to sort through between the women that are really capable teammates who might appreciate nice things versus the women who only appreciate what you can put in their bank account, who are trying to get on to basketball wives. You know, and in fact, that's one of the things that would probably turn me off about, you know, being a professional athlete, you know, is the kind, like the caliber of women that they kind of seem to run into, the women that kind of seek them out and hunt them down. And, you know, but at the same time, you know, who we choose to be with is a reflection of ourselves. So you can't speak too negatively of your partner without also speaking negatively about yourself. Remember, when you know, and I learned this too, when I would look at the women I chose throughout my life, I see myself. I see my evolution. I see how I changed from what I used to like when I was 20 to what I liked when I was 25, 30, 35, right? I saw the mistakes I made. I saw the times where maybe I was sucked in by a big butt and a smile, or something that really didn't define an adequate difference between what I wanted and what I needed. I had to learn the balance between the two, right? And so I made a short little list in case you're not sure, in case you're young, in case you're trying to figure this out. Here are, and this is for the men and for the women. This doesn't just apply to the men. Here are some reasons why having a lot of women can really weigh on your life and weigh on your soul. Number one, child support is terrible. Don't ever go through the child support system. If you pick a woman and that you think you might sleep with or possibly have a child with, it's a good idea, a good policy, a good insurance policy to find out what her policy is on the role of the father in the household. If I were young and having a child, I would pick a woman who makes it 100% abundantly clear to me that she believes that it's very important to keep the father into the life of the child under almost any circumstances. Like, even if she's pissed at you, even if she hates you, even if she thinks you're a piece of shit, she won't disrespect you in front of the children. She will make sure that the children go see the daddy. She'll make sure the daddy's involved because she understands the role of daddies. Usually women who have a father or a strong male role model that has a heavy influence in their life are better able to see it. But there are some women who didn't have that who maybe can appreciate that as well. But that's extremely important. If you don't value the father, then you're not going to have a child with me. Also, and this is a personal thing. If you're flippant about abortion, like you don't think abortion's a big deal, then I'm not sleeping with you because I'm not letting anybody kill my child, right? So, but I'm not going to give you a chance to do that, right? So another reason that having lots of women can be a drag on your life is, you know, these STDs are real. Like, they, you know, everybody talks about these infection rates for this corona shit. Man, you ought to see the stats on STDs up in this. It's insane. Like, it's almost borderline hilarious that the same people that are scared to death of corona have no knowledge or concern whatsoever for all the other things that are killing black people, for all the other things that black folks are going through. You know, it's like this hidden homicide, or this underground trauma that people are going through, where nobody's talking about. You know, for example, you go down to Atlanta, the STD rates are insane. College campuses, a lot of HBCU campuses as well, you know, got some real bad STD problems. So, you know, when you run around kind of sleeping with a lot of different people, you might catch something that you can't get rid of. So you want to think about that. Number three, if you're a black man and you run into enough women, I believe that I honestly think that there is, when you're picking partners, there's at least like a maybe 30% crazy ratio. Maybe it's the crazy ratio, right? There's a 30% of the people that you bump into are going to have some mental health issue. I really believe that. I believe if you date 10 women, 3 of them going to be crazy. At least 2, preferably 3. You'll possibly and probably 3. All it takes is for one woman to decide that she wants to make a false accusation against you. All that has to happen is you get drunk, she gets drunk, she wants to have sex, y'all go have sex, and then she leaves the situation and tells a completely different story from the one that you're telling. She interprets the situation in a completely different way, almost to the point where you think that like she was born in outer space. Like, you're like, where did you get this story? We had sex. it was great, and you're up here telling people, talking to people as if I forced you into something or made you do something wrong. That's very, very serious. People get long, long, long prison sentences for that. And also, there's no repairing your reputation at that point. It doesn't even matter if you, doesn't matter that you didn't do it. Doesn't matter that you didn't do it. You see, we falsely are raised to believe falsely that if you don't do anything wrong, you're going to be okay. That if you're telling the truth, everything's going to work out. That's bullshit. No, there's a lot of guys who told the truth, followed the rules, went through the procedure, did what they're supposed to do, still got sent to prison. Why? Well, because you're a black man. I don't know if anybody ever told you that you're a black man, or maybe you forgot that you're a black man. But at the end of the day, you're a black man. If somebody accuses you, especially a white woman, you're probably going to go down on some level. You're going to have some traumatic experience that comes from that, where you lose all your money, you lose your reputation, maybe lose your job, maybe get kicked out of school, maybe do some time in jail, whatever. All right, next. What else? You lose a lot of time. Keeping up with a lot of women takes a lot of time. So if you're a big goal setter, like if you're a person that's really trying to accomplish things, like you're trying to be, a great musician, or trying to be the next Michael Jordan, or trying to be the next CEO of a great big company, keeping up with a lot of women and calling a lot of women on the phone every day is really not a great use of your time. It's just you're not gonna accomplish anything. So that's another thing. And then the last piece is money. Money will drain out of your ass like nobody's business. One good example is a guy named Antonio Cromartie. Cromartie played for the Jets and some other teams. He's a really good player. And I remember reading about how he had like a ton of kids with a bunch of women. And I remember just thinking, wow, I hope that this guy makes at least $10 million a year for the rest of his life, because all those kids that he's got, I don't really see how this is going to play out well for him. I just really don't. He eventually got married and he had a bunch of kids with his current wife. God bless him for that. But I would bet everything that he's having some challenges with child support. And I bet you anything that he's pissed off at the amount of money that he has to pay to take care of all those kids. It is difficult. It is very expensive to maintain multiple households. And that's pretty much what you're doing when you have a bunch of kids with a bunch of women. So I just want to publicly thank Steven Jackson for sharing that perspective. A lot of our young black boys grow up wanting to be, basketball players, and they want to be rich and all this other stuff. And I'm not an NBA player. I mean, I couldn't even make the basketball team in high school, but I was actually captain of the track team, so I was an athlete. I played football and all that stuff, but I wasn't like Steven Jackson. But I've had a little bit of money. I know what it's like to get a lot of attention, and I also know that as a black man, you have to be extremely strategic when it comes to how you conduct your life. If you're not strategic, if you're not able to think 3 steps ahead, you're gonna get took. If the white man don't get you, then a gold digger will, or maybe another black man is going to get you. You have to be strategic in terms of how you make every move. If you're not, then you're going to find yourself losing everything, right? So, and I also like the piece where he talked about building with a black woman. I think that we got to make sure we keep that at the top of our priority list. When you do decide to settle down and get married, I encourage you to look for a sister. There's lots of great black women out here. I'm not going to fault you if you don't, but I think at the same time, I've always been real curious as to why athletes, so many professional athletes, just seem to love these white women. I don't understand. I don't get it. I honestly think if I was a black woman, I'd probably be a little insulted by it. I'm not going to lie. All right, guys. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. And by the way, we actually had a movie about love and relationships. If you guys want to take a look at it, it's theblackloveblueprint.com. THE. That's theblackloveblueprint.com. And of course, if you want to learn how to invest, you can buy your first share of stock by visiting firstshareofstock.com. That's firstshareofstock.com. So feel free to go there. You can learn for free, and that's something that I think will help all of you if you're trying to get enough money. Because whether you have, no matter what you do, if you have kids cost money. So make sure you learn your wealth building strategy so you can build a strong family, because it's very, very difficult to do anything in this world without money in your pocket. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Have a good day, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Peace.